Hello and welcome to our channel. Today, we embark on an in-depth journey into one of the most defining chapters in American history, the Civil War. From its roots in the nation's earliest days to the dramatic battles and the enduring legacy it left behind, we'll explore every aspect of this monumental conflict. It was a conflict that reshaped a nation, a war that tore families apart, challenged the very foundation of a young republic, and redefined the meaning of freedom. This is the story of the American Civil War. So, grab a seat and prepare to uncover the stories of courage, tragedy, and transformation that shaped the United States. The seeds of the Civil War were sown long before the first shots were fired at Fort Sumter in 1861. The United States, a nation forged on the lofty ideals of liberty and equality, was paradoxically built upon a foundation of profound contradictions. From its inception, the country grappled with the coexistence of democratic principles and the institution of slavery. The northern states, with their burgeoning industries and urban centers, began to champion free labor and individual rights, while the southern economy remained deeply intertwined with enslaved labor, perpetuating a system that denied basic human freedoms to millions. Political compromises, such as the Missouri Compromise and the Compromise of 1850, attempted to balance the interests of free and slave states, but these measures only delayed an inevitable clash. Cultural, economic, and ideological differences deepened over decades, fueled by debates over states' rights, territorial expansion, and the moral question of slavery. By the mid-19th century, these divisions had hardened into irreconcilable conflicts, setting the stage for the bloody confrontation that would ultimately determine the nation's future. The northern states, with their growing industries and urban centers, were moving toward a modern economy. Meanwhile, the southern states relied heavily on agriculture, with enslaved labor as its backbone. This economic disparity created tensions over tariffs, trade policies, and most divisively, the institution of slavery. In 1860, the election of Abraham Lincoln as the 16th president became the tipping point that pushed the nation toward civil war. Lincoln's Republican platform strongly opposed the expansion of slavery into new territories, a stance that symbolized a direct challenge to the Southern way of life and its economic reliance on enslaved labor. His election was seen as a threat to the political balance that had, until then, allowed slavery to persist. For many in the South, Lincoln's victory signaled the beginning of the end for their institution and way of life. Southern leaders believed that they had lost their voice in the federal government and saw secession as their only recourse. This outrage quickly turned into action as state after state chose to leave the Union, starting with South Carolina in December 1860. By early 1861, 10 more Southern states had followed, forming the Confederate States of America under the leadership of Jefferson Davis. Lincoln's election was not just a political event but a catalyst that unleashed decades of mounting tensions, igniting a conflict that would ultimately decide the future of the United States. One by one, Southern states seceded from the Union, forming the Confederate States of America, with Jefferson Davis as their president. The stage was set for war. On April 12, 1861, the long-standing tensions between the Union and the Confederacy erupted into open conflict when Confederate forces fired on Fort Sumter in Charleston Harbor. The bombardment began in the early hours of the morning, with Confederate artillery unleashing a relentless barrage against the Union garrison stationed within the fort. Under the command of Major Robert Anderson, the Union troops valiantly held their ground but were vastly outgunned and undersupplied. After 34 hours of continuous shelling, Anderson was forced to surrender the fort. This dramatic and symbolic confrontation marked the official beginning of the Civil War, a conflict that would engulf the nation in a bloody struggle for its very soul. The attack on Fort Sumter galvanized the North, uniting public opinion in favor of preserving the Union, while the South celebrated what they saw as a bold step toward independence. Little did either side know, this initial clash was only the opening chapter of a devastating war that would last for 4 grueling years and reshape the course of American history. Both the Union and the Confederacy believed the war would be short-lived. Volunteers flooded recruitment offices, eager to fight for their respective causes. But the reality of war would soon prove far grimmer. The war quickly escalated into a brutal conflict with battles that would become legendary. The First Battle of Bull Run in July 1861 shattered the illusion that the war would be swift and decisive. Fought near Manassas, Virginia, this clash saw Union forces, confident in their ability to crush the rebellion quickly, met with fierce resistance by the Confederate Army. The Confederate victory not only bolstered Southern morale, but also highlighted the inexperience and lack of preparedness on both sides, signaling that the conflict ahead would be long, grueling, and unlike anything the young nation had faced before. In 1862, the Battle of Antietam became the bloodiest single day in American history, with over 22,000 soldiers killed, wounded, or missing. Fought near Sharpsburg, Maryland, this brutal clash halted Confederate General Robert E. Lee's invasion of the North. Though the battle ended in a tactical stalemate, it was strategically significant for the Union. The Confederate retreat gave President Abraham Lincoln the confidence to issue the Emancipation Proclamation, a transformative executive order that shifted the war's purpose from solely preserving the Union to also abolishing slavery, altering the course of American history forever. On January 1, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, a bold and transformative declaration that all enslaved people within Confederate-held territories were to be freed. This momentous decision marked a turning point in the Civil War, redefining its purpose. Initially waged to preserve the Union, the conflict now carried a profound moral imperative: the abolition of slavery. Although the proclamation did not immediately free all enslaved individuals, as it applied only to regions under Confederate control, it fundamentally altered the nature of the war, signaling to the world that the United States was committed to ending the institution of slavery. The proclamation also had far-reaching effects, encouraging thousands of enslaved people to seek freedom behind Union lines and allowing African Americans to enlist in the Union Army, significantly bolstering its forces. Beyond the battlefield, the Emancipation Proclamation set the stage for the eventual passage of the 13th Amendment, cementing the abolition of slavery in the United States Constitution and shaping the nation's legacy of freedom and equality. In July 1863, the Battle of Gettysburg marked a critical turning point in the Civil War. Spanning 3 days, from July 1st to July 3rd, this monumental battle saw Union forces under General George Meade clash with Confederate troops led by General Robert E. Lee in the rolling hills and farmlands of Pennsylvania. Lee's ambitious campaign aimed to strike deep into Northern Territory, threatening cities like Harrisburg and even Washington, D.C., in hopes of forcing a negotiated peace. However, the Union Army's strategic defense and decisive counterattacks thwarted Lee's advance. The battle resulted in staggering losses on both sides, with more than 50,000 soldiers killed, wounded, or missing. The Confederate defeat at Gettysburg forced Lee to retreat southward, ending his invasion of the North and bolstering Northern morale. This Union victory, coupled with the simultaneous fall of Vicksburg in the West, marked a significant shift in the war's momentum, as Confederate hopes for foreign recognition and a swift victory began to fade. Meanwhile, in the West, General Ulysses S. Grant secured key victories, including the capture of Vicksburg, splitting the Confederacy in two. General Sherman's infamous March to the Sea brought the war's devastation to the Southern heartland. The Civil War was the deadliest conflict in American history, claiming the lives of over 620,000 soldiers, a toll greater than all other American wars combined at the time. Beyond the battlefield, countless civilians faced devastation, with towns and farmland left in ruins and families torn apart. The war's impact extended far beyond the immediate loss of life, leaving deep physical and emotional scars on the nation as it struggled to reconcile its fractured identity and rebuild from the ashes. Medical care was primitive, and disease claimed more lives than battlefield wounds. Figures like Clara Barton, who later founded the American Red Cross, emerged as heroes amid the chaos. By 1865, the Confederacy was crumbling. On April 9th, General Robert E. Lee surrendered to General Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse. The war was over. While the Union had been preserved, the cost was staggering. The South lay in ruins, and the nation faced the daunting challenge of Reconstruction. The Civil War forever changed the United States, leaving an indelible mark on its history and identity. The 13th Amendment, ratified in December 1865, formally abolished slavery, ending centuries of an institution that had defined and divided the nation. Yet the struggle for equality and justice was far from over. The end of the war marked the beginning of Reconstruction, a turbulent period during which the nation grappled with rebuilding the South, integrating millions of newly freed African Americans into society, and addressing deep-seated racial prejudices. Despite the legal abolition of slavery, systemic inequalities persisted, with many former slaves subjected to sharecropping, disenfranchisement, and violent oppression under Jim Crow laws in the decades that followed. The Civil War set the stage for future civil rights movements, serving as both a reminder of the nation's darkest chapters and a beacon of its enduring pursuit of liberty and equality for all. The echoes of the Civil War can still be felt today in debates over civil rights, national unity, and the meaning of liberty. As we reflect on this pivotal chapter in American history, let us remember the sacrifices made and the lessons learned. The Civil War was not just a conflict of armies, but a battle for the soul of a nation. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with others, and subscribe for more deep dives into the past. Let us know in the comments what topic you'd like us to cover next. Until then, stay curious and stay inspired by history.